Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Regular viewers may remember this tank. This is my Oase Scapeline 90p. It's been running for about 6 months now, but things are starting to look a little bit overgrown, this fern being one of them, and the stems have definitely looked better. The Rotala bonsai is definitely growing well, but everything else, yeah, it's looked better. They're looking a little bit rough and unkept. Another issue that I have is soil rolling into the foreground. This is because there is kind of gaps in the hardscape that I haven't filled properly, and I have fish that dig, such as cories and coolie loaches. And I also have some algae on the wood and on the rocks. This is due to the CO2 running out and me not realising, so it's been running without CO2 for a while. This tank is my 45p. This is one that I scaped a few months ago. But as you can see, the Cypress halferi has really overgrown this tank. This was a bad plant choice on my part. This can grow literally up to like a metre, and the 45p is just far too small for this tank. And whilst it does look quite nice, it is just really overgrown. So what we're going to be doing today is a plant swap between the two tanks. This is quite a cost-effective way, I guess, to get a new aesthetic on your tank. So I just basically started with ripping out the stems, and I'm not going to lie, when I started this there was a point where I definitely did regret it, but with stems, for me, the window of enjoyment is just far too small. Under a high energy system, they require trimming or pruning, a week, if not every 2 weeks. And that's just kind of too much maintenance for me to commit to, especially when I've got multiple tanks and obviously, life as well. So if I just had one tank, this wouldn't be so much of a problem. But given that I've got about 5 tanks that all need a certain level of maintenance, I just figured that I would prefer to go with something that it's okay to look a little bit messy. And I feel like lilies and tall grasses, they suit that aesthetic a little bit better. There was actually a lily in this tank that I didn't even realise I had, so that will be going back in. I also thinned out the Java fern. This is about half of it. As you can see, there is a lot. You could literally make a wig out of this. And this again, it's another plant that under the right systems, it just grows like crazy. One thing I did want to do is replenish the soil with some nutrients. This is because the plants that are going to be going in are quite heavy root feeders. So I'm using ADA Iron Bottom. I'm not actually sure what the sort of like nutrient content of these capsules are. The tub is in Japanese and I don't speak or read Japanese, but I think it's just like a basic nutrient capsule which is then covered in iron, and that's just going to give some sort of like extra nutrients to the plant roots and just sort of replenish the soil. This is Tropica Aqua soil, but I would imagine, given that it's been growing stems for the past 6 or 7 months, it probably is quite depleted in nutrients. The next thing that I'm going to do isn't something that I would normally do. I don't even know if this is going to work or if it's going to cause me some issues, but I am really sick of vacuuming out soil from the sand because it just constantly keeps rolling forward. So I'm actually going to cap it with some very fine gravel. So this is just some cheap Hugo Kamishi gravel, and I'm just going to put a layer essentially in the back of the tank. It does look quite nice because it brightens things up, but I don't know if this is going to cause issues with sort of like nutrient exchange, but we will see. As you can see, I have removed part of the fern. I'm debating whether or not just keeping like a frill on the bottom and then having it so you can kind of see the lilies and things that are going to be peeking through from the top, but we'll see as we go along. Next, I am removing the plants that are on the right hand side. This was predominantly Helanthrium tenulim green, which is a plant that I just do not like anymore. It's a brute and it overtakes everything and it kind of strangles everything and it just grows so fast. So yeah, I've decided that I don't like it anymore, so I'm removing that. As you can see, this is all of it. I literally planted 1 pot and it's just multiplied like crazy. Those 4 sprigs of Eleocharis, given that I planted 2 pots in there, it just seems to have drowned everything out. So yeah, taking all that out. Next is a plant that I wanted to try for a while. This is an Echinodorus red diamond. I've never used Echinodorus before, but what I really like about these is the sort of tricolour leaves that they get, and as they mature they kind of turn different colours, and I thought that they would complement lilies and Cypress halferi quite nicely. So we planted some of them in the back, and I bought a few pots of Eleocharis. So we've got a Sicularis, which is the longer variety, and some Pasilla, which is essentially the mini. So we're going to try that again. And there's some various crypts that are going to go sort of from the back and up the left hand side as well, that I've just pinched out of other plants. And I also bought a pot of Nurii, which is a relatively new crypt, and apparently quite rare, but now Tropica have started doing it. So yeah, I figured that Eleocharis would probably complement the sort of vibe that we're going for, which is this sort of like really grassy natural look. So I toyed with Braziliensis, but I think Eleocharis just keeps that nice sort of like bright green look to it, whereas Braziliensis is a little bit darker, and I kind of just wanted to brighten the tank up. As mentioned, we do have a few algae issues, and it seems to be mainly BBA, which is growing predominantly on the wood and on the rock, but there is also some kind of like green, fuzzy, furry looking algae on the rock. This is just due to an imbalance and probably, you know, me not taking as good a care of it as I should have been, and letting the CO2 run out and not paying enough attention. So we have got a bit of hair algae on the plants, but all in all, this should sort of settle and die down just with some extra maintenance and just making sure that everything's in check in regards to the lighting and the dosing and obviously the CO2 as well. But this is everything planted. I'm going to dose it with Seachem Flourish Advanced just to ensure that the plants develop a nice strong root system and they can start taking up nutrients from the soil quicker, and it'll just help them get established better. I also did thin out the Blixa japonica because that is another plant that just kind of grows like crazy and starts growing on top of each other. And I did put some fern like back in the top portion because in the end I just thought it looked a little bit odd. But all in all, I am happy with it. I do miss the stems a little bit, but I think from a maintenance point of view, this is certainly going to be easier. And I do like that the fish have more swim room. I like that they're able to swim through the sort of stems of the Echinodorus and like between the Cypress helferi, whereas when you plant stems, they kind of just develop this really solid mass and it takes away the swim room. As you can see here, we have more BBA on the wood. This is extremely close to the outlet, so that could potentially be why. But as I said, just some extra maintenance, some extra care, and actually paying a bit more attention to it should sort these issues out. On a water change, I will probably paint it with some Seachem XL, which is a glutaraldehyde, like a bleach type solution, and that'll just give it a head start in getting rid of it, and then it might make it more sort of edible for things like the Otocinclus and the Amanos, which I very rarely ever see in here. But yeah, as mentioned, overall I'm pretty happy with it, and it's a more cost-effective way, I guess, of changing the aesthetic of your tank without an entire rescape. But I'd love to know what you think. Here is the before and here is the after. Obviously it needs to establish a bit more. But yeah, that's it for this one. Thanks so much, guys. See you on the next one.